right, guys, and we are back. This is the Nerds Who Drink. My name's Steve.
I'm Mark.
And guys, this week we have our drink visiting us all the way from Westchester, Pennsylvania, Levante Brewing Company, Fruit Fetish Cranberry Jam Fruited Sour, which is wildly and drastically different than pretty much everything we've drank so far. Not that we've had a ton of them, but we had a basic lager and an IPA so far?
Yes.
All right, so nothing too crazy or out there. I'm a huge fan of sours, which is why I ended up choosing Fruit Fetish. The cranberry jam was just a benefit. It is a very seasonal looking can, I guess you could say. Check out our Instagram for the pictures. And yeah, I mean, Mark, what is your opinion of it?
Well, first glance, very appealing can. Really draws kind of your eye. You know, you got the red bouncing off the green. You got just the Fruit Fetish logo itself. Itself is very catchy. Beer itself, it's very sweet. Very, very, very sweet. A little bit sweeter than I like. I know you're more into like the fruitier beers or the sour beers.
Huh? What are you trying to say, huh?
No, fruitier tasting.
I'm fucking with you.
The fruitier tasting.
Oh, dude, listen, I'm all about some different shit. Like, growing up, obviously, we had our Yingling and our Miller and all that bullshit, but I've definitely gotten a little over. Yeah.
I had Lion's Head and Jenny Light.
Hey, listen,
Bud Light.
Not all of us are fancy like you, okay?
Fancy. Lion's Head's $15 a case, man. You have to do the whole Lion's Head challenge where it has the little, what are they, puzzles or whatever?
Yes, absolutely.
The little puzzles on the top. So you do a case race, but you keep all of them off to the side. So you have to drink your whole case, then go back and solve all of them to win.
I mean, that's honestly sounds like a fucking good time. And if our listeners would like to listen to us do that, I am 1,000% in for doing that shit. It would be super fucking fun. So, I guess this week we had spoke about, prior to recording, the Acolyte. So, I'm really excited for the show because it's like the first High Republic series, the High Republic era series that we've gotten. And I've read some of the books. Mark and I have met Charles Soule, who's the author of the High Republic series. We got some sweet comics signed from him, some variant covers, and we'll definitely be posting those on Instagram when the time comes. And I'm just like, I was wowed. I watched a very, very brief clip on Instagram as I was scrolling through because it's almost impossible to fucking miss out on any kind of spoilers and shit that they got going on. But I was super happy with it, if I'm being completely honest. So, what do you kind of want out of this new series?
So first thing that I want is just a good story. Like everything in Star Wars boils down to the actual story that you're telling. It doesn't matter like what new characters you bring in this and that, because I think it takes place like 100 years before the Skywalker series, I believe.
So, yeah, right around there.
In that range.
I don't have exact timelines, but we'll get there. They'll definitely let us know.
But yeah, I would say number one, obviously you need a good story, because I believe that's where the original Disney trilogy failed, was they went in with no storyline. They basically recreated the original three with a more terrible base, basically.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I know a lot of outrage was being had about the lightsaber width. That's the main concern I've been hearing, which I personally don't care. Like, it's probably cool. I just don't know how practical the weapon actually is. I know you brought up the question before of, like, can it latch on to other lightsabers or, like...
Is it just going to be deflected like a lightsaber duel? Because at that point, yes, it really is effectively fucking useless against another lightsaber. It's a limp noodle.
It was like when we were kids and you would play skip it, but you could never go around your ankles. So everybody would stay in a circle around you and you just spun in circles holding it, trying to whack their ankles.
Yes. So, and for me, it's... Again, I guess I'm just excited about the High Republic aspect of it because it was back when like the Jedi were at their peak. So that's something that is super exciting, and I definitely think that we're going to see a lot of good lightsaber, I guess, dueling and or fighting, and that's, if it's done correctly. I think the way that Jon Favreau and Filoni have been pushing the Star Wars on Disney Plus, like I've not been upset with anything so far. And I know technically Bad Batch doesn't fall under that, but like we're talking Bad Batch, with the Stories of the Empire,
Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Jedi. You've had Ahsoka. You've had
Visions. You've had Obi-Wan. I mean, like, everything has been, like,
good.
It's been great. I mean, we're talking 7 out of 10 or better.
I mean, this might be a hot take, but I mean, the only thing I've really had issues with really was the show Andor. I know everybody loves it, but like for me, I really didn't think it was that great.
Listen, and I'm not going to say it's not a good show. I feel like because it was based around Cassian Andor, who came from Rogue One, which again, I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but we are so accustomed to like lightsaber battles and Jedi and this and that. Like maybe that toned it down a little too much.
See, I don't even know what it was because like Rogue One, like honestly, Rogue One is like the only Disney movie that's Star Wars that I actually appreciate. Like I think they did a really good job with it. The pacing of that movie is really good, but for the show, I really didn't understand like I get where it is in the timeline, but I don't understand like where it kind of like fit. Like he's basically just in a prison making parts and then stages a riot and then breaks out. It's like, oh, okay. Well, like, what's that lead? Like, that's not leading to anything.
Sure.
Like Ahsoka, they're leading to Thrawn coming back. In Bad Batch, you had it started off at Order 66 and went all the way through, and they put the little kind of like hints in there of like the cloning of kids and studying midichlorians. And they started working like other aspects of the Star Wars universe into them projects. Andor, for me, it really just like, did they even ever tell you like what the parts they were making were for? I assumed it was the Death Star.
I'm going to be honest with you, off the top of my head, I can't recall if they did or not. They very well may have, but again, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where it was like, I didn't think there was enough meat or juice in that show for me. Very similarly to Secret Invasion.
Yeah, Secret Invasion was terrible.
It didn't do it for me in the way that other Marvel series have done it, and the same thing, Andor. Great show for what it was, but it just wasn't for me, and that I don't necessarily think it's a hot take. I don't know. I'm so much up in the air about it because again, I want to love Star Wars for what these guys have been doing for it outside of the Disney the terrible 3, and it's I don't know. I think this series should be a knockout if they do it the way that the books did it, because the books, I mean, God damn it! In the first 3 chapters, like your heart is growing, and then your heart's torn out. And your heart is growing, your heart's torn out. And you're really connecting with these characters, and if they can do that on the page, and they just bring that to the screen, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Oh, I think that would be awesome because, especially because like during the time of the High Republic, like I said, I've never read the books, but like I know I've watched enough content to kind of understand and grasp like what was going on. Plus, obviously, like my favorite Star Wars character of all time is Darth Revan. Like just his storyline alone would be number 1, the best Star Wars movie ever made, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Homie literally went from the light side to head trauma to a Sith, back to the light side, and everything in between. But I feel like during the High Republic, like you said, like that was like the height of the Jedi. Now I get it, like special effects and all that play into the movies, but majority of the Jedi in the movie, like be it alien or human, they were humanoid.
Yeah.
But like now you got Wookiees that could be possibly pop up as Jedi. You have
they
like
are absolutely gonna have that, and I'm fucking so excited.
And like you have like all these other things because like I know in Clone Wars, like the animated series, like they have that whole, I don't know if it was a whole season, but there was at least one episode where like Yoda takes all the younglings to the cave to like carve out their kyber crystals out of the stones and everything. And I know one of them was a Wookiee.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, okay. And then with that, I know I've seen like paintings and drawings and like artwork of like tree trunk, like what's the handle of the?
Oh, the saber, the hilt.
The hilt.
There's the word.
Thank you, hilt.
There's the fucking word.
You know, because we know English, but like you may see like hilts made out of like bark, like because for me that was always my favorite part of Star Wars was like you have all these Jedi and every single like there's no cookie cutter lightsaber.
Sure,
each
absolutely.
of them are altered or like not manufactured, but like built to that person. So I just want to see what new designs you have because like you have Maul that has the double-ended, you got Dooku where it's curved, him and Asajj Ventress. You have Vader that's just like all broken up and everything. Cal Kestis is just made out of junk parts.
Yeah, I think that concept of like having a no lightsaber or like no two lightsabers the same, to quote Harry Potter, like there's not two cores that are ever going to be the same in that regard. And I'm really excited. I know that when they did the premiere for Acolyte, they displayed the sabers from the show. I didn't get a good look at them, but I know from the series there's a Stellan Gios lightsaber, which is it's blue, but it has the original crossguard, similar to Kylo Ren, which I hate referencing him because obviously he was not the first to do it. But it's gold, it's silver, it's very like regal looking. It actually has like a metal piece that bends around the saber itself, so like it's just a really clean looking hilt.
Well, and just to build off of that too, like you said, like he wasn't the first one to have like the cross saber. But I know I've read in stories before for Star Wars where I can't remember who it was, and if listeners, if you guys know offhand, please reach out, let us know. I'm pretty sure there was a Sith in the past that had like a scythe. Like his saber was pretty much a scythe.
I
And
wouldn't put it past them, honestly.
and that's what I mean. So it's like everybody just assumes like, oh, it's a lightsaber. Like it should be a sword, which brings me back to the whip, where it's like, okay, like depending on the actual physical mechanics of the whip, does it just back off? Like, does it just bounce off? Does it actually like grab hold of? Like how that interacts with other sabers? Like it could end up being the coolest weapon ever, or it could end up being the dumbest weapon ever.
Absolutely. I think one of the big things for me is that they are branching out and saying that, like, just like weapons in our time, they evolve, they change, you know, we have whips in our society, we have swords, we have, katanas and broadswords. Things are different per the area that you grew up in. And kind of like you said, like, you want to see different hilts from, like, okay, if you're from Kashyyyk, if you are a Wookiee, maybe you have a more earthy tone to your lightsaber.
Right.
Or if you're from like Coruscant, where you have a higher class of character, it's maybe it's gold in there and it's got encrusted pieces. Like it's just there's so many different styles and types of things that you can do with it. That's what excites me the most. And I know you haven't done it yet, but I've done it twice now. Listeners, go build a damn lightsaber at Disney. I know this is not a thing that they're paying me to say. I'm just telling you to go fucking do it because it is awesome. The experience itself is fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, the other thing too, now this is something me and some of my coworkers were talking about, was like, even though it's 100 years ago, like, what were some characters that we might be able to see still? Because,
Sure.
like, I'm
Well, I
pretty
mean,
sure,
Yoda's technically alive, right?
I was going to say Yoda would still be alive. Grogu would have probably, like, just been born, because he was, what, 50 in The Mandalorian or so, they said?
Yeah.
So Grogu still might not be around, but, like, what about, like, Yada? Yada could be there. Yoda could be there. Dooku, we could possibly get like a young Dooku,
Yeah.
like where he's basically like a Padawan at that point, I would assume.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what Dooku's age was in Attack of the Clones, but if you're going 100 years back,
He's an old dude. Yeah, no, absolutely.
and that's the thing, and you never know, because it's like, yeah, they're humans, but like, what's the lifespan of a Star Wars human versus like a normal human?
No, absolutely. And I think one of the big things, again, whether you see necessarily like a younger version of Dooku or maybe some of these people's ancestors. You might hear some name if they fucking throw out the word Skywalker. I'm probably going to throw my TV into a river. We need to stop. Stop doing that. We don't need it anymore.
Well, wasn't Anakin technically the first Skywalker?
I believe so. So like again, that's why I'm saying I get it. It's one of the most well known names. Like you could say Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker, and whether you've seen fucking Star Wars or not, you probably have heard the name. We don't need that. What we need is new shit.
I want it like House of the Dragon was, where it's like, oh, this is such and such Stark. Yeah. It's like, oh, I know Stark, but it's like, I don't know who the hell this guy is, Correct. But I know Stark. Like, you know the name, but like, let's put it this way. I would love to see Yoda as like a cameo in the series. So as we know, or at least as I think I know, because like I said, I haven't really done much. I'm going into this show green. It's supposedly about 2 Jedi or 1 Jedi fight hunting down like new developing Siths and them trying to figure out who they are, but it's gonna be from kind of like the Sith point of view versus the Jedi. But I would love to see maybe like in like one of the Jedi Council rooms or something like that, like just a quick meeting between like them and Yoda, and then you kind of get like Yoda's intake. It's like, okay, there's our there's our fan service. Now let's just go on.
Yeah, no, I would be okay with that, honestly. We don't need, like, I don't want what happened in, like, Book of Boba Fett to happen, where, like, 3 episodes in, we're like, oh, we're just pandering to the fans now because they love The Mandalorian so much. Like, we also love Boba Fett. He is quickly become, in, you know, all of the most recent stuff, like, Mandalorians are fucking, they're hot right now. Like, they're a big deal. Jedi are still awesome. Like, that's always been cool. But, you know, and that kind of brings me to, like, the Toy Story. Like, Woody was awesome. Cowboys were so cool. But then the space guy came.
Right.
And it's like, all right, Jedi were always awesome. Now Mandalorians are dope as fuck. And they can still both be cool.
And especially the fact, I think the thing that really, like, I feel like Mandalorians were always cool. Because, like, Boba Fett was always a fan favorite, even though he just literally had, like, in the original trilogy, he has, what, 4 lines?
Yeah.
5 lines, something like that. But I feel like it was just, like, there was no substance behind the characters. And I think that was part of it, was, like, nobody knew who this guy was. This was just a bounty hunter that just popped in, had a cool voice, and then got eaten by the Sarlacc.
Yep.
Like, but now that you're actually learning about their culture, you're learning about, now, mind you, there's, like, I think there's 381 books or something like that for Star Wars that you can go out and read, not including comics.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm sure in those you can find a lot of lore about Mandalore, the original Mandalorians. But as far as, like, the average watcher went, you didn't know anything about them. You just knew, okay, there was Jango. Jango cloned himself, but took out the aging factor, and now you have Boba. So now Boba is a clone of Jango who will eventually grow at a regular rate versus the accelerated rate that the clone army was.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, and that's the other thing too, is like, we always known like the army of the bad guy. So like, for example, in the prequels you had the clone troopers. In the original trilogy you had stormtroopers. In the prequel trilogy you had clone troopers. Like, that was your army for your villains. You had the droid army. Like, I'm wondering what we're gonna see there, because I forget when, but I'm pretty sure the Rule of Two wouldn't have come along yet. So we could see a million Sith, and their army could just be all Sith.
So I think, and again, I could be wrong, because Mark and I are very much like trying to avoid spoilers in this regard for the Acolyte. I think because the term is Acolyte, which is singular, we might only get one at first, and then the one tries to start changing others, and maybe, you know, see how that kind of develops into a Sith army, and I would love to see that by the end of the series.
Well, that comes into my other thing too, is like, you don't know how old people are. You could get a younger Palpatine with him being under Darth Plagueis.
Yeah.
You could just get Darth Plagueis with I forget who came before. I forget who his master was, but you could get Plagueis and his master. Like, we don't know who like the overlord villain is going to be. That's kind of pulling the strings.
Yeah.
At that point.
I'm very excited to see how this sort of turns out. Obviously, like I said, Rule 2 doesn't exactly apply, because in the quick clip that I saw, there was like 30 Jedi. So it's like, okay, there's a ton of them. And again, based solely on the books that I've read, they're kind of like space police. So I'm cool with it. I want to see things from a dark side perspective, because we always see the good guys win. Even if a bad guy wins this time, like, that would be okay with me.
I would just like to see it from a villain's perspective. Like, for me, I think the craziest movie you could do would be go back. Obviously, you can't because Heath Ledger's gone, but go back and redo The Dark Knight. But you do it from the Joker's perspective. Same exact movie. Don't change anything with the way the story plays out, the way it goes. But rather than us following Bruce Wayne and Batman and how he's trying to figure out what the Joker's next move is, we follow the Joker to try to be like, oh, what's Batman's next move to stop me?
Outsmart Batman. I like that. That's an awesome
and I
concept.
think you could do that with like anything. Because, I mean, I know we talked the other night when we tried to do this recording the first time about, like, I would love to see, even if it's just like a mini series about Grievous, like prior to him becoming the android.
Yep.
Like, I feel like that would be like super cool, because not many people realize that like he was actually like a big general for his army. I forget what his race is called, but he was like an actual general in the army, and then basically some accident happened, and now all he has is eyes, heart, and a lungs, and then they build him the exoskeleton. And now he just runs around collecting lightsabers.
Yep. No, again, I think that'd be an awesome series. I think a Maul series would be cool. Revan. There's so many like dark side characters that they have that you could really delve into, and I mean light side as well. But I feel like so many of these movies, we've had 9 movies, and it was all very much like the light side and the light and this and that. Now that we have the Joker movie come out and all of these things about like the bad guys have come out, let's watch that kind of shit, because the good guys don't always win. Like that's a real thing. The good guys don't always win. So I would be cool with watching, maybe not the bad guys necessarily win, but like the bad guys come out on top. I mean, how fucking successful was Infinity War?
Right, and that's Thanos' movie. That isn't an Avengers movie.
Fuck
That's
yeah.
Thanos' movie.
He comes out on top, and again, he loses in the long run, but fuck me running if that's not like one of the greatest endings to a movie. You're just like, well, shit, he won.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what do they do now? Like,
where do they go? What's the next move? And you see it in Endgame. But, you know, it's one of those things where it's almost never really been done.
Yeah, because I mean, in Tales of the, I think it was Tales of the Jedi, like you got like a brief couple episodes where you see Dooku's fall, but you don't know anything prior to that.
Yep.
So like you could go into like a bunch of these little characters and kind of do, I forget what the thing with Marvel is called, where it gives you the breakdown of like the individual characters.
Oh, Marvel's Assembled.
Marvel's Assemble. Like you could do something like that with Star Wars, where it's like, oh, here's one full episode about the life of Dooku. Here's one full episode about the life of Maul. Here's one about Plagueis. Here's one about Revan. Here's one about
5-10 minutes. Give me something. Yeah, that would be awesome. Just like a little, like I agree, like kind of like Assembled, where it's like, all right, here's little details about the character you may not have known, and I think that would be super cool, even if it was just to hold us over until something big did come out.
Right, and I think the best way, for me personally, I think the best way they could go about just building this Star Wars universe would be use the live action to kind of like introduce and throw out these new characters, but then you can use the animated series to really flesh out their characters.
Oh, absolutely. 110%.
Because then in the cases like Ahsoka, like I don't know about you, but like the character that caught my attention the most was, what you call it? Was it Balin
Skull,
Balin Skull, who's played by
Ray Stevenson.
The late Ray Stevenson. And like I want to know more about that character. And unfortunately, you know, like Ray Stevenson passed, but like I want to know more.
Well, yeah, we could get a Balin Skull prequel, because it doesn't need to be Ray Stevenson, and that would be a pretty cool honor to like his legacy, which is Balin Skull. I mean, fuck, that was an awesome character. Like I'm so sad. Obviously, he passed, and that's a sad thing, but he played such a great character that he would have brought so much more to that Star Wars universe than we could have ever hoped for.
Yeah, like they ended it with him going looking for like the original gods, like the brother, the sister, and the father. And then at the end, you see like the statues in the background that you knew from like, I forget if it was Clone Wars or if it was from Rebels. I think it was Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Clone Wars because Anakin teams with the brother in the episode, so it had to be Clone Wars. So like, you see those statues in the background, and then like that's it for his character now. It's like, well, what's he gonna do? Like what's he gonna find?
And
you're never gonna know.
Shin Hati.
Yeah, and for me, she's just kind of like there for the most part. Like I understand what they were trying to do is like, oh, she's gonna be like the next apprentice or whatever. That's kind of what she was guiding to. But then at the end, it's like, oh, I just found this gang of people in the desert, so I'm just gonna take
over the overlords of the desert. I like it. I mean, I thought she was a pretty cool character, opposite of Sabine Wren. So, and again, she had her place. Like Ahsoka, Balin, Sabine Wren, Shin. Like, I get where they were going with it, and it would have been a really cool thing to like see play out as both apprentices really like got into it. But I digress. I know we had wanted to talk. You'd said you got into live action Avatar finally.
Yeah.
So to pivot a little bit to another series, loved Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action series. Obviously, we grew up with Avatar, the animated series, as kids. Let's hear some hot takes on the live action.
Honestly, I don't have many hot takes. I mean, yeah, they're using like certain certain firebending like generals in positions that like they weren't in the animated to kind of carry the story, because they kind of like, It starts off with what's his name was Zuko in book one, kind of like hunting the Avatar at the same time.
Yeah.
But like, correct me if I'm wrong, Azula doesn't pop into the series until book two, right? Like you hear about Zuko
Yeah.
having a sister, but I don't think she's like a main character until really like.
Nah, I don't think she plays as big of a part until the second season. But again, that I understand what they're doing. They're taking a lot of information and they're kind of condensing it into like what they can in palpable 1 hour episodes.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I know we had one of the biggest things we had talked about, and you brought up in the first time we recorded before the critical failure that we had. Where the fuck does the fire come from?
That dude, I've been researching it. There are zero answers on the internet. If you guys listening know, waterbenders. Waterbenders need water. Airbenders, they need air. Earthbenders, they need physical earth. Firebenders just make fire. Like,
Yep.
why is it not like Pyro from the X-Men where they need to be walking around with little Zippos to be able to throw a fireball at you? Why can they just breathe fire out of their mouth, their nose, and warm themselves in the cold? That's not fair.
So now, and so my only like argument to that, because I had thought about it and I'd done some research myself. The sun and Sozin's comet are like the big things that they sort of like pull their power from.
Right.
Right. So like the sun exists when they had the solar eclipse. That's when the firebenders are like powerless.
Right.
Lunar eclipse, waterbenders are powerless. Sozin's comet, which again
Only, like,
is
once
a,
every
is
500
a
years or
celestial
whatever.
thing, but like once every some odd years they have the comet, they get like superpowered. But I'm very confused as to like at nighttime. Waterbenders aren't just like better at night and firebenders have like no power. It's just it is what it is. But again, like where does it come from? Is it waterbenders would be more attuned to pulling like water out of the air or bodies or what the ground, there's like
Your
maybe it
body is
rained.
70% water. Why can they not, like, literally in the thing, and a coworker brought this up. There's an episode in the anime series where Katara is literally sweating, and she goes like this and just pulls the sweat off
Yeah.
herself. Like, why? Okay, just do that from anywhere.
All the time.
Yeah, like, and why? And that's the other thing too. Is like, why do you need the blood moon to be able to bloodbend?
See, I think that was strictly more just like
Because it was a kid show.
a kid's show, but also, so again, we had talked briefly about like Legend of Korra last time, and it was eventually you don't need the blood moon. Like people become so attuned to like bloodbending that it becomes a thing that like you can do during the day, you can do at night, you can do on the weekends, on your days off. It just becomes a thing. But in the original series, I think the blood moon was just because like it's blood bending, so we need a blood moon, and this just makes sense.
Right, but most of, like, blood has water in it, so you
Yeah,
shouldn't
no, I
need that.
agree.
You should be able to do it anyway.
Well, and that's
And I get, like, it was a new thing, because just like with Toph, like, Toph kind of had to teach herself how to metal bend and all of that. But it just irks me that it's like, hey, 3 out of the 4, like, elements, you physically need it near you to bend it. But fire, you can just create. It's cool.
we'll
Like,
just say
let
fuck
it
it.
go.
Yeah, no, I agree that there's a glaring plot hole unless one of our listeners can like comment on this and just let us know where you think it comes from, and if you've got a right answer that sounds awesome, I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get at this point. But really, like, where does it come from?
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, we kind of got limited time here, but back to the live action. What did you think?
So, like I said, I'm about halfway done it right now, but I feel like the pacing is very well done. Number one, the character designs and the actual castings, perfect. Chef kiss. Mwah.
Oh, beautiful.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you meet Ty Lee, you know who Ty Lee is. You meet Zuko, you know who Zuko is. You meet the Kyoshi Warriors, you know who the Kyoshi Warriors are. You meet Jet, you know who Jet is.
Jet is the one that got me because like they meet him and you immediately know, like from the original series, like fucking shot for shot, that's Jet.
Like he's literally just on the bridge trying to get into the Earth Nation on like a wagon with his horse or whatever pulling it. Like it's not even like, oh, he has like his sickles or he has like the
His
blue
armor
and
on,
like the armor and stuff. Or you meet Pipsqueak and the gang and all them guys. it's like, no, it's just him in a robe, and it's like, dude, that's Jet.
Oh yeah, you know it like the second you meet him. And I thought that was really cool that you felt those characters in the actors and actresses. Like they really brought those characters to life, and I think that was huge. One of the big things, and again, having watched the series a few times, but like the minor characters, like the inventor that they meet in Bossing Say, like he's one of those people that I'm like, okay, like I didn't really remember him from the animated series because it wasn't like a giant plot point. It was an episode.
It was more about his son in that episode
Correct.
too.
And he's, the kid in the wheelchair who can basically taught himself to airbend, but just in a glider. And that's what Aang gets like so obsessed about in that episode. But it's really one of those things where I'm like, holy shit, like they did really well with those people too. Even the minor storyline characters, you just brought them out and fleshed them out so well.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing too that I felt like the live action actually did a little bit better than the animated so far is like I never understood why Aang couldn't just fly
Sure.
as an airbender. And in the show, like he can. Like without the glider, like when they first introduce him, he's just flying around the city like it's whatever. Like he still uses the glider in other times, but you specifically see him do it without the glider.
I think again for the fact again I don't know how much they wrote prior to like filming, or not filming, like I guess drawing out the Avatar series back when in the early 2000s. In Legend of Korra, they kind of explain why airbenders can't like fly anymore without the use of gliders and air bison or sky bison and stuff like that. But I do like the fact that in the series, he, we'll call it falling with style, to quote Toy Story again, but like he kind of just floats himself around and does his thing. And I love that. I'm glad you brought that up. That's something like, again, if you're an airbender, you just manipulate the air around you. You don't need a glider necessarily.
Right, and like you said, like in they used to be able to make like
A
the
little
clouds.
nimbus cloud.
Yeah, they used to be able to make the little clouds under them to fly around on. Like that makes sense. Like you could just condense the like if you can bend the air, you can compress it to be have suitable weight to sustain the weight of you to be able to just glide around.
Yep.
And I never understood like in the TV show like why Aang couldn't just kind of like do that without the glider. It's like, dude, like you're an airbender. Like the whole thing for you should be I can fly.
Yeah, I liked it because it still showed that he was a kid and maybe didn't understand like the complexities of doing stuff like that. But also, again, when you get in the Legend of Korra, when you get deep enough into it, the airbenders are all wearing squirrel suits and they just manipulate the air around their squirrel suit.
That's awesome. That's
It,
really smart.
it's fucking fantastic. And like I love that concept because they're all like that's their new airbender uniform. It still has like that classic yellow and red with like a little bit of gray and black built into it for like the futuristic aspect of it. But god damn it, it's so fucking cool.
Now, I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but I do have a question because I am going to get into Legend Car. But do they ever explain like how airbenders came back?
Oh yes, that is a very big episode. It's if I'm not mistaken, and this isn't to give anything away to anyone that hasn't watched it, but it's harmonic convergence. Like there's an entire episode about that, and like you'll understand as you watch through it. But yes, the airbenders do come back. Obviously, Aang himself, if you've ever watched it, uh, was it? God damn it, I can't think of his name. J. Jonah Jameson from any Spider-Man movie.
Oh,
J.K. Simmons.
yes.
Oh my God, he is the main Airbender character. He's like the teacher of Korra in the show, and yeah, like he's an Airbender because Aang and Katara had children,
Okay.
and I think because Aang was the Avatar, and like I guess like that was his main element, that sort of took over as like
A dominant
a
trait.
dominant gene, and he had a couple Airbender kids. But he also had a waterbender child, so like that. Let's not knock that out. And then he had a non-bender child as well.
Okay,
But
so Aang kind of restarted the cycle of bringing them back.
sort of, and then
Okay.
Korra does the rest.
Well, no, I was just kind of curious if that was a thing where, because like they very heavily explain like the Fire Nation went ham on the Airbenders.
Everyone but one
Like,
died.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, okay, like you have that one. Was it like an Adam and Eve kind of a theory? Like, hey, there was two people and now you have billions. Or was it more of like, hey, there's actually a structured reason for how these people came back? Or are they just not around anymore? Because Aang's still the last airbender.
It's a little column A, little column B, not so much column C.
Okay.
So like It's like Immaculate Conception met Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Like you'll understand when you watch through it. It's a really interesting way that they bring the Airbenders back, but it's super fucking cool. And kind of like the Flash when he, brings all the bolts of lightning from the sky and like creates a bunch of speedsters. Not everyone is good.
Right.
So like that is a really cool twist that they bring on it. Because again, like you're so used to like the Fire Nation are the bad guys, the Fire Nation are the bad guys, and like
And
they
now it's
push
like
that down your throat.
anybody could be.
Now anybody can throw and catch hands, and it's pretty cool.
No, I'm excited to see. I've heard nothing but good things about the finale of this first season of Avatar.
It's
Obviously,
fucking great.
like I think it was like a week or two after the first season dropped, they already were renewed for the next 2 seasons.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they knocked out the entire Avatar: The Last Airbender series. Like the second that they closed episode 8, I swear the first person that finished watching it, they were like, "All right, we're gonna call them. All right, 2 more seasons, guys. We're in."
Yeah, like I think I don't know. There's a lot of things. Like there's part of me that's like, dude, just stop rebooting all this stuff. 'Cause like someone was just saying the other day that they're rebooting Fairly Odd Parents.
No, see, I disagree with that.
And that's what I'm
That's
saying.
too much.
So I'm like, dude, stop rebooting. Just come out with some new stuff. Or like they keep going Star Wars. They keep going back to Skywalker. It's like, dude, there's so much more time, so many more galaxies, so many more planets. Just make up new people.
Fuck, at this point, just do different shit entirely. Like, you don't even need to reference books or comics or anything else. Just fucking make new people. It's a goddamn galaxy, and it's forever. It's ever expanding and ever, both directions. You can do the future, you can do the past, you can do the present that we never saw before. Star Wars, like the 9 movies that we saw, are a fucking blip.
Yeah.
It's the tiniest like grain of sand on the beach that is Star Wars.
Right, like Vader died at what, probably like 40, 45 when
Yeah.
maybe 50 when him and Luke duel. So it's like that's literally just 50 years out of all of this stuff.
That's not even fucking Grogu. Like,
And
god damn it.
Right, and that's where I feel like with Avatar, like I feel like anybody that's gonna any company or whatever that's gonna adapt an animated series like try to do it verbatim, which I feel is the way to go when you do live action. Yeah, you can have your minor changes or whatever, like little tweaks that you need to carry your story. I understand showbiz and that and all that. But like this is the show. And again, I'm only 4 episodes in, but this is the show to model that off of.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a huge thing, I know Netflix teamed up with the original creators of Avatar, and like they created a company called Avatar Studios. They are doing some more animated stuff, some more live action stuff. We have so much to look forward to in the future, and that for me is exciting because they're not just doing like, oh, we're just going to reboot Legend of Korra live action. Oh, we're just going to reboot this. No, like they might give you the gang during their like late teenage, early 20s, maybe 30s, where they were running around as like a group of essentially bandits, just kind of like trying to wage war against crime.
It was basically 3 teenagers fighting an entire nation.
Exactly. And,
Like...
I mean, and you get Zuko, who becomes a Fire Lord at like 16.
Right,
and it's just like a wild concept. I mean, he has an entire Fire Nation, but he's still out there battling it out, trying to, make things right with Aang and Katara and Sokka and Suki. Like, it's just such a cool idea. Or, again, when you'll meet them in Legend of Korra, but like the Red Lotus. And again, that goes back to the Acolyte. Give me the dark side people. Give me the people that were bad. Where were they in their teen years? Why did they turn the way that they did? Why did they all become bad people?
Right, like was this something that specifically happened to them? Was it more along the lines of like a Dooku where it was more of an ideology reason for turning? Was it more of an Anakin where it was physical things that happened to him?
Absolutely.
Played on top of manipulation? Was it an active choice like Maul where it's like, like they're born into the dark side? Like he was a Night Sister, essentially.
Yeah.
Like they are one of the
choice.
Only 2 people that Sidious really feared, and that's why he took Maul on as an apprentice, was to appease his mom and keep her happy.
Yeah.
Like
and give me things like that. Like, give me more depth to these characters and stories. Like I love that kind of stuff. But I think, for now, that's all we've got until the Acolyte comes out. I'm super excited. That comes out this week.
Wednesday, June 5th.
4th. Tuesday?
4th?
I think it's Tuesday the 4th.
I thought it was Wednesday.
I could be wrong.
I could be wrong.
Either way, it comes out this week. I'm very excited. So last but not least, I'm Steve.
I'm Mark, and you are correct. It is June 4th.
We are the Nerds Who Drink, and we'll catch you guys in a couple weeks.